Take me away before dawn. I'll cook, clean, and never complain," pleaded the mail-order bride. The night was still, wrapped in the kind of silence only broken by the lonely call of a night bird. A single lantern flickered at the small frontier station, its pale glow illuminating the wooden platform. Beside a weathered bench sat Clara Whitmore, her gloved hands clasped tightly in her lap, her trunk at her feet. Her heart beat so hard she could almost hear it. This was her last chance. Clara had fled a life of sorrow back east, a widowed stepmother who treated her as a servant, a house that no longer felt like home, and whispers of a marriage arranged to a cruel mill owner twice her age. So, when she had read the advertisement from a rancher in Wyoming Territory seeking a bride, she answered with trembling hands and desperate hope. "Take me away before dawn," she had written. "I'll cook, clean, and never complain." Now, here she was, waiting. The early autumn wind tugged at her bonnet and chilled her to the bone. She wrapped her shawl tighter, nerves making her fingers shake. Would he even come? Or would she be left here, shamed and abandoned like the stories she'd heard of other mail-order brides? A crunch of boots on gravel pulled her from her thoughts. She lifted her gaze, and in the lantern glow she saw him. Jacob Harland. Broad-shouldered, taller than most men she'd ever seen, with a weather-beaten face that spoke of years under the western sun. His dark hair was streaked with dust from the long ride, and his hat sat low on his brow. He walked with a steady, deliberate stride, a man who knew how to command the land he lived on. "You must be Miss Whitmore," he said, his voice low, rough but not unkind. Clara scrambled to her feet, nearly tripping on her hem. "Yes, sir. Clara Whitmore." His eyes studied her, not cruelly, not with judgment, but with the careful gaze of a man measuring truth against hope. She knew she wasn't a beauty. Her dress was plain, her figure modest. But her heart beat with a desperate longing for a place, for a family, for someone who would not cast her aside. "I reckon the stage came in late," Jacob said, glancing at her trunk. "You've had a long journey." "Yes," she whispered, lowering her gaze. Then, before fear could still her tongue, she blurted, "Please, take me before the sun rises. I'll cook, I'll clean. I won't complain." Her words hung in the night air, raw and pleading. She hated herself for sounding so desperate, but it was the truth. She had nothing else to offer but her willingness. Jacob's jaw tightened, and for a long moment he said nothing. Clara's heart sank. But then, slowly, he nodded. "You'll not be left here," he said firmly. "If you came all this way, you're coming with me. That's settled." Relief washed over her, so powerful it nearly brought her to tears. She covered her mouth, blinking rapidly. "Thank you." Jacob lifted her trunk as though it weighed nothing and carried it toward his wagon, where two sturdy horses waited. The lantern light caught the lines of his face, tired but strong, stern yet steady. Clara followed, each step pulling her farther from the life she had fled and closer to the unknown future awaiting her. When she climbed onto the wagon seat, Jacob offered his hand to steady her. His touch was warm, calloused, real. For the first time in months, Clara's heart dared to whisper a fragile hope. Maybe she belonged here. Maybe she could be more than a burden. Maybe, just maybe, she could find love in the wide, untamed West. As the wagon rolled into the darkness, leaving the lantern and empty platform behind, Clara pressed her hands to her lap and whispered to herself, "Don't complain. Just be grateful. This is your chance." Beside her, Jacob guided the horses with quiet ease. He didn't speak much, but once in a while he glanced at her, as if trying to see past her words into the truth of who she was. Neither of them knew yet what tomorrow would bring, but the stars above seemed to hold their breath, watching the beginning of something fragile, uncertain, and full of promise. Rebecca woke with the first light of dawn, the sound of roosters crowing just beyond the window. For a moment, she lay still, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling of the small guest room. The quilt tucked around her smelled faintly of cedar and sun-dried linen. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't Daniel Harper's bride. And yet, the quiet safety of the farmhouse felt like a balm she hadn't known she needed. Downstairs, she could hear the faint creak of floorboards and the clatter of pans. Daniel was already awake, no doubt tending to chores. Life on the frontier didn't allow for late risers. She slipped from bed, smoothed her skirts, and tied her hair back before making her way downstairs. Anna sat at the table, legs swinging, while Daniel moved about the small kitchen. He glanced up as Rebecca entered, his expression guarded but not unkind. "Mornin'," he said simply. "Good morning," Rebecca replied softly. Anna beamed. "Miss Rebecca, I saved you the first biscuit." She pushed a plate toward the empty seat beside her, her smile wide enough to light the room. Rebecca's chest warmed. She sat, smoothing her skirts, and accepted the biscuit. "Thank you, Anna. That's very sweet." Daniel poured coffee into a tin mug, his movements steady, deliberate. "You don't owe us any work," he said, his tone low but firm. "Once the next train comes through, we'll see you back where you're meant to be." Rebecca froze. She had known this moment was coming, knew she wasn't supposed to stay, but the words struck sharper than she expected. Anna's face fell, her little shoulders slumping. "But Daddy," she whispered, "she is meant to be here. I know it." Daniel sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. His eyes softened on his daughter, then returned to Rebecca, cool and steady. "We'll not confuse hope with truth. I don't reckon you intended to end up in Mill Creek." Rebecca lowered her gaze to her biscuit, her appetite gone. He was right. And yet, the thought of leaving this small kitchen, of walking away from Anna's trust and Daniel's quiet strength, felt unbearable. She swallowed. "You're right, Mr. Harper. I didn't intend to come here. But—" her voice trembled. "Perhaps I was meant to all the same." Daniel's jaw tightened, his gray eyes unreadable. He said nothing. The days that followed unfolded like threads weaving themselves into a pattern Rebecca hadn't expected. She helped Anna with her lessons at the table, sounding out words and practicing numbers on scraps of paper. She mended a tear in Daniel's shirt, her needle moving carefully through the fabric. She fed the chickens, gathered eggs, even swept the porch where Daniel sat in the evenings, his pipe sending curls of smoke into the twilight. She wasn't asked to stay, but she wasn't asked to leave, either. Each night, Rebecca lay awake, staring at the ceiling, torn between guilt and a longing she couldn't name. She should find a way back to Clearwater. The man who had written her was waiting. Yet with every laugh Anna shared, with every fleeting look Daniel gave her when he thought she wasn't watching, Rebecca's heart shifted. One afternoon, a storm rolled across the plains. Thunder cracked, shaking the windows. Rain pounded the roof. Anna clung to Rebecca's side, eyes wide with fear. "I don't like storms," she whispered. Rebecca wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "Hush now, darling. They're loud, but they can't hurt you in here. Think of it as the sky clapping its hands." Anna giggled nervously, tucking her face against Rebecca's shoulder. "You always make it sound better." When Daniel came in from the barn, soaked to the skin, he stopped short at the sight of them, his little girl safe in Rebecca's arms, her fear soothed by gentle words. For the first time, something unguarded flickered in his gray eyes. Later, after Anna had fallen asleep in Rebecca's lap, Daniel spoke quietly from the hearth. "She hasn't let anyone comfort her like that since her ma passed." His voice was low, rough. "You've done more in a week than I've managed in 2 years." Rebecca's throat tightened. She only needed someone to listen. Daniel's gaze lingered on her, heavy and searching. "Maybe we both did." The fire crackled between them, the storm fading into silence. Neither spoke again, but something unspoken hung in the air, fragile and undeniable. The following morning, Daniel hitched the wagon. "The train'll be in Mill Creek this afternoon," he said, his voice flat. "I'll see you to it." Rebecca's heart dropped. Anna's eyes brimmed with tears. "No, Daddy. Don't make her go." Daniel crouched, taking his daughter's small shoulders. "Anna, she's not ours to keep." Rebecca looked away, her chest aching. Every sensible thought told her he was right. But her heart screamed otherwise. As the wagon rolled toward town, Anna clutched Rebecca's hand, refusing to let go. "Please stay," she whispered fiercely. "Please." Rebecca blinked back tears. "I want to, sweetheart. More than you know." Daniel's hands tightened on the reins. He didn't speak. When they reached the station, the train whistle echoed in the distance. Smoke rose on the horizon. Rebecca stepped down from the wagon, her satchel heavy in her hand. She turned to Daniel, her breath unsteady. "I never meant to deceive you," she said softly. "But in this house, for the first time, I felt like I belonged." Her eyes burned. "If I leave now, I don't know if I'll ever feel that again." Daniel's jaw clenched. He looked at Anna, who was already sobbing, her small fists rubbing her eyes. He looked at Rebecca, trembling with honesty, hope shining through her fear. The whistle shrieked. The train rolled into the station, hissing and steaming. Rebecca turned toward it, her heart breaking. "Then, Rebecca." She froze. Daniel's voice was rough, but it carried like thunder. She turned. He stepped closer, his gray eyes fierce and unguarded at last. "You're right. Maybe you weren't meant for Mill Creek. But I reckon Mill Creek was meant for you." His voice cracked. "Stay. Not for Anna, not out of pity, for me. For us." Rebecca's breath caught. Anna flung her arms around Rebecca's waist, crying, "Please, Miss Rebecca." Rebecca looked at the train, then at Daniel. The choice was clear. Her satchel slipped from her hand onto the dirt. She stepped forward, tears spilling freely, and Daniel caught her against him. His embrace was strong, steady, and for the first time in years, Rebecca felt truly safe. "I'll stay," she whispered. "If you'll have me." Daniel's lips brushed her temple. "I reckon I'd be a fool not to." Anna squealed with joy, clapping her hands. The train pulled away, whistling as it disappeared down the tracks, leaving the three of them standing together in the golden afternoon light. Rebecca had stepped off at the wrong station. But she had found the right place, the right family, the right love. And this time, she wasn't letting go.